The whole purpose of astrology is developing an understanding of oneself and realizing our full potential, playing to our strength instead of running into our weakness, helping people to lead a fulfilling life and also come across some of the challenges so which are beyond their control. Astrology is nothing but a time based model. So there is a layer between astronomy and astrology. So that hidden layer is, in my opinion, that is a statistical modeling framework. Statistically, this view, the geocentric view, it offers a lot of variability. So everything is a measurement. It all begins with the measurement of planetary positions. 12,000 years ago, so the pole star was Abhijit. So there is quite a bit of astronomical expertise and knowledge and observation has gone behind in developing the framework. Even many astrologers don't know that these nakshatras exist up or down. So they move on a different speed. No other system in the world has such a level of detailed combination between sun and moon. The predictors are nothing but planets and their positions and their different unique status. I don't know why nobody ever looked into it from a statistical modeling framework. Not only from an astrology framework, even otherwise from a pure statistical modeling and construction framework. So this is one of the very, very elegant systems. Mathematically, they are able to synthesize everything into a fewer handful of manageable dimensions. No two astrologers will be able to provide a reading, same reading pattern in Lagna. So this person tends to be more of a workaholic person, right? And this person will accumulate things, but he won't be able to enjoy things to the full potential. You combine the bhava, you combine rasi, you combine planet, you can quickly get into a reading mode and tell how the life will be. Because the more you stay in a matrimony site, the more revenue stream for that. If you build like a mathematical model, and if you develop a knowledge database, which is purely based on a astrological model at a large scale, like a country level database, it has a huge potential. If you are able to choose someone, who is going to run a good times and who is also a genuine guy, then he can bring about a lot of good things to the society. All our kids go through this grind. We all push them into same set of system of education. We don't allow them to realize their full potential that is indicated in their horoscopes. We don't have a public database which talks about what kind of patterns will yield to lead to what kind of outcomes. Good evening to everyone, all beloved honorable Rotarian members of Mysore Club and other clubs. It's a great honor presenting you. So what I have been working in the field of Indian astrology. I thank everyone for providing me this opportunity. This is my first speech to a non-astrologer audience. So I will try to make it simple and interesting. I would like to start today's presentation with a Tirukural, which is written by our famous Tamil saint Thiruvalluvar 2000 years back. An entire set of 10 couplets talks about the fate and what fate can do. And this Tirukural, which says that this is the last of that particular Adhigaram, it says, ஊழிர் பெருவழி யாவுல மற்றொன்று சூழினும் தான் முந்திரும். So what this literally means is that, so even if you try all the possible ways to overcome the fate, that will win at the end. And the whole purpose of whatever we try to beat or we try to win the game by all our actions, even after all of that, finally the fate will win. So that's what he says in two lines. Before going into the presentation, I would like to understand in this crowd, how many of you don't believe, or don't have any positive opinion about astrology? This is nothing personal. You have the right to like it or don't like it. I just want to know how many of you, probably you can raise your hands, who don't believe in astrology, who don't think that that's kind of, okay. So I see one hand going up, two, okay. I saw three hands, okay, four. Probably it's a minority crowd. So my objective today is not to convince you or not to convince anyone that this is right or this is wrong, but rather providing you some perspectives as a statistician, more from a technical background, so that you can develop some appreciation for the knowledge per se. My topic for today's presentation is Indian astrology for the modern times. And if you know, I have been writing about the Indian astrology and its mathematical magnificence and statistical background this last since 2019. And this is my website in which I write a lot of articles both in Tamil and English. This site has a listing of all my speeches related to astrology. Some of you, if you're interested or inclined from a statistical perspective, you are welcome to go and review these articles. Since last 5 years, outside my work and family commitments, I spend most of my time researching about Indian astrology. When I started learning astrology out of curiosity, then I ended up learning more about it from a statistical perspective. Hitherto not touched by many, and nobody have attempted a very serious attempt of looking Indian astrology from a statistical perspective. I would say I started learning astrology as a neutral to skeptic. Over the period of time, after going into all the technical details and the way they have constructed such an elegant prediction framework, I became a strong advocate of it. And then I started learning astrology more from a statistical as well as from a practitioner point of view. So today I would like to cover these four topics. I want to keep this an interactive session, so I will, after completing my speech in another 15-20 minutes, we will open the floor. Astrology is for many people who are coming from a scientific background, it's more of a superstition. Not many people attach any value to astrology. And especially if you go to the Western world, if you're an astrological practitioner, if you know astrology, they treat you like a third grade citizen. They think that you're not logical, you don't have any background, and we are driven by beliefs. But interestingly, if you look at India, India is the birthplace of astrology, contrary to what all the textbooks says, that astrology was invented by Greeks and whatnot, Romans and all of that. That's all not correct. If you go back to the roots, the very, very deep roots of astrology, you will find that the Indian system is more elegantly structured, more original, and it has all the principles from a modern statistical point of view that surpasses any other system in the world today. And being India being the birthplace, you go to any part of India, at least you will see some type of an astrological prediction framework exist, and people follow different methods, but all of them follow the same, pretty much the core components of Indian astrology. So which is about having a 9 planets from sun to Saturn. When I say sun, some of the eyebrows can go up. So how can I say sun as a planet? I will come to that point. And in some systems, Maharishi Parasara system, so we follow something called a lagna, which is a 10th variable in the model. We follow the geocentric view of planets from the place of where you stand. And if you look at the sky, there is a particular band from an ecliptic point of view, so which is plus or minus 6 degree. So within that band, you can see all the planets traveling on that path. Wherever a planet is positioned, we take this a measurement and we place it in a nakshatram or we place it in a rasi, and then that's how your astrological chart is constructed. So I will talk about that when we get there. But the geocentric view is the basis for all the measurement of planetary positions. If you have some interest or if you have gone into the astrology, so you will know that there's quite a bit of extensive astrological knowledge that has gone behind developing the astrology. And a lot of the modern day inventions like Earth is round, planets are orbiting in circles. So all these are new inventions to science in the recent years. But this is a very, very basic ingredient of all the Indian astrological prediction systems, so which are at least a few thousand years old. The texts that are available to us are at least some 2000 years old. If a 2000-year-old text can document so much of information about astronomy, then imagine a system that was developed originally before that several thousand years ago. So that is the known and a little bit unknown side of Indian astrology. The unexplored part of astronomy statistics and astrology. So there is a layer between astronomy and astrology. So that hidden layer is, in my opinion, that is a statistical modeling framework. And not any have gone into looking into astrology from a statistical construct point of view. And that's where I started my journey, and that's where I'm going to share my findings with you, some of my findings with you today. So let us start with the universe. So if you look at the universe, we are a very, very minuscule. The solar system is a very, very minuscule of the larger universe. You may be aware. The sun is part of the what is called a Orion sphere. Within Orion sphere, there are a lot of suns, surrounding around the universe in the galactic center. So within that, if you look at the right hand side, so the Orion sphere pointed arrow, that's a very, very small spot, which is the solar system. So within the solar system, there are planets, as far as we know, up to Pluto. But within that, that's where the scope of the astrology begins. And there are two views. One is called an heliocentric view. If you keep sun in the center of the solar system, and if you look at from the sun's point of view where planets are positioned, you can see that in this view. I'm looking Earth. One thing I just want to step back is while we talk about the solar system and all of that, so there is a nakshatra system which we call, which is kind of a background on which the entire solar system moves. In Indian astrology, we consider 27 nakshatra groups. So in the 27 nakshatra group, the longest distance nakshatra that sits is that's called part of a Mula Nakshatram. So Mula Nakshatram is a bunch of nakshatras. So the longest distance is Mula Nakshatram, and that is about 1,100 light years away from us. So the boundary of astrology ends there, and it begins at Swati Nakshatram. Swati is like 32 light years from the sun. So this is the range bound. It is a background on which all the planets we measure the movements. So if you look at from a heliocentric, sun-centric view, so this is you will if you create a chart, you will mark Earth in Scorpio and Mercury in Gemini. So, but we live in Earth, and this view is relatively static, heliocentric view. So, what our sages have done is, so they have developed a system based on Earth-centric view, which is easy for us to see and measure. It's all about measurement, right? You see, there in the olden days we didn't have any telescope or anything like that, or any modern measuring systems. So we look at based on observation, we see the movement of planets. So they developed this system called geocentric view. So in geocentric view, whatever the chart you saw, whatever the view you said earlier from heliocentric, if you look at here, so you will see that Sun is in Taurus and Mercury is in Gemini. So this is how you'll note down. So this is how you draw lines for each of the planet. So here, if you look at Mars, Mars is in Pisces. Whatever you see from where you are in the Earth on the 360-degree view of the Earth that comes around the Sun, whatever the planets you see, that's how you note it down. Statistically, this view, the geocentric view, it offers a lot of variability in the movement of planets. So sometimes you will not see something called a retrograde motion if you're using a heliocentric view. If you use a geocentric view, you can see the movement of a retrograde motion for planets, some of the planets. So that's the beauty of the geocentric view. So this is the basis for Indian astrology. So everything is a measurement. It all begins with the measurement of planetary positions. And if you come back to the 27 nakshatra systems, at least we have about 73 different nakshatras. So that are identified as markers on the entire 360-degree circle. And some nakshatras are single, some nakshatras are group of nakshatras. So it all start with Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, it goes like that and ends with Revati nakshatra. There are quite a bit of nakshatras. The nakshatra selection has its own astronomical merits. There are a lot of measurements, the brightness of the star, the distance, and all of that are considered in identifying those 27 nakshatras. If you look at the Mesh Rasi, the pictures that you see on the right, this is called a Western type figure. There is nothing like a goat there. It's just an imaginary lines drawn just to highlight certain principles or certain characteristics in people. Other than that, it's just a line. So it's just a marker point in in the 360-degree circle. So it all starts with Ashwini, and sometimes even the brightest stars wouldn't be included in the logic, in the 27 nakshatras. So there are some nakshatras, 2, 3 combinations. So that's how they have chosen the 27 nakshatras. If you look at from the center of the earth, and if you see from what is called an equatorial grid view, so this is something as the earth is tilted on its axis by 23.4 something. If you draw a line, perpendicular line on latitude and longitude, this is how it will look like. So if you look at the lines, that is like a S-shaped curve. So this is where all the planets will move. The different colors indicate path for different planets. In the solar system, all the planets move around the Earth in a particular band that keep varying. And before that, we also see there is something called a pole star. So today's pole star is called Polaris. And if you look 12,000 years ago, so the pole star was Abhijit. So which is one of the nakshatras, sacred nakshatras we call. So this is a pole star, and current pole star is like Polaris. So there is quite a bit of astronomical expertise and knowledge and observation has gone behind in developing the whole the framework. And the ecliptic path is the core of all our astrology. So ecliptic path is, this is how it is drawn. So as the earth moves around the sun, it draws an imaginary line on the back end. So that is the ecliptic line. So this is one line. So if you use that ecliptic line as your zero line, and if you develop a latitude longitude frame, kind of a framework, x and y axis 2-point framework, so that's how it will evolve. I will show you that. If you look at from an ecliptic path view, you can see that all the planets travel in a band of distance on the ecliptic grid. So if you draw a line like this, so all the planets will travel in this path. So you may wonder, if you see here in this band, so you will see that some of the nakshatras, 27 nakshatras, are not part of this asterism. We call asterism is like an imaginary line. For example, a Leo will look like a line, and a Pisces will look like two fishes. So those kind of imaginary lines, but those nakshatras are not part of those 12 rashis. So they are, some of them lie above, some of them lie below. So some of them are just on the line. So there are quite a bit of reasoning that has gone behind. So even many astrologers don't know that these nakshatras exist up or down. And the lowermost part of the nakshatra is your Hasta nakshatra in this case. If you draw a line, a grid of latitude and longitude, so it will be like this. And in this path, called ecliptic path, so that's where all the planets move from a geocentric view. So this is the core basic. If you draw these lines into like a rectangular diagram, if you place all the nakshatras on this x and y axis, this is how they will look like, the nakshatras positions. And in the center of that nakshatra system, 27 nakshatra system, so we have the Chitra nakshatra. So Chitra is not exactly 180 degree in the 360, so it's a little bit to the right. So, but we adjust it. There is something called an Ayanamsa concept, so which is height of knowledge of Indian astronomy. So we use an Ayanamsa and Ayanamsa correction when we cast horoscopes. If you place two planets on this path, basically the Jupiter and Saturn. So if we allow them to move, so they move on a different speed. In this case, we will measure Jupiter in Ashwini, or Jupiter in Ashwini Nakshatram, and Saturn in Kritika Nakshatra. And every birth chart is unique. We'll talk about that. And let me quickly show you what our sages have found, developed a system. So if you take the astronomical data on the x-axis, that's where the current data is. If you find out the exact location of a nakshatra, this is where they are located. On the y-axis, I have the astrological construct. In astrology, we divide the 27 nakshatra into equal distance of 13.20 degree. So if you look at that, so that is what it's on the y-axis. So if you draw a line between them, just to see how they have chosen a nakshatra. It will be an amazing finding that you will see exactly they have chosen a nakshatra which is based on an equal distance, or at least near equal distance, because there wouldn't have been any other star in that nearby location, right? So that's the reasoning behind the 27 nakshatras. So it looks like randomly they have chosen some nakshatras here and there, but if you go and measure the precision, it's an amazing precision. So if it's like, if it's close to one, that's like a perfect line. But if you see here and there, it's very, very close. And these nakshatras also move. So by the time when they started developing this framework, it would have been pretty much on the closer lines. If you go back, that runs into several thousand years in history. So that's the level of astronomical wisdom Indians had and developed the system. Now, we'll quickly move on to something everybody, often talks, many of the astrologers talks, which is about Rahu Ketu. And modern science reject the hypothesis that Indian astrology is not sound. It says there are quite a bit of constellation, but in Indian astrology we use something called Chandramana houses. So if you trace the path of moon is like 5.5 degree tilted on its axis with Earth. So where the Earth's path and moon's paths are like 5.5 degree tilted to each other. So the moon's path is in the inner circle and the Earth's path is on the outer circle. So if you draw a imaginary line between them, so they intersect at 2 points. So which is nothing but Rahu and Ketu, which I will touch in the next slide. But if you look at moon's path, moon travels through all these like close to 25 constellations, modern constellations, and Earth travels only through the 12 constellations. So that's how we used a 27 constellation moon and sun combined system in Indian astrology. So no other system in the world has such a level of detailed combination between sun and moon. So that is a uniqueness of Indian astrology. Okay, so if you look at the Rahu Ketu nodes, so when that both paths intersect, they intersect at 180-degree distance. When moon's path go above sun's path, so that is a Rahu node. If it's a vice versa, then it becomes the Ketu node. So we additionally use these two mathematical points in Indian astrology. Astrology is nothing but a time-based model. So everybody is born unique. Whenever you're born, if you cast a horoscope, no two horoscopes in the world will be same. Even if you're born in 2 minutes, there are certain variations in the charts. So everybody is unique. We are nothing but an identity of a point in time. We also use sun as graha. I will come to that later. And Ayanamsa, I talked about it. There is a certain level of knowledge how the whole earth rotates around its axis that has been used creating the Ayanamsa principle. So if you look at here, this is called a 12 Rashi and a 9 planet system. Additionally, we have something called a Lagna. Any birth chart, Rasi chart, if you look at, we will move the components on the right to a particular box. And that's how your Rasi chart is constructed. I will show you Rasi chart later. Now let's look into Graha, why we call Sun as Graha. So Graha is something which is moving with some amount of randomness involved. So if you look at the whole solar system, it revolves around not around the sun, but rather a common center called a barycenter. If you are into the scientific background, you will know. So it revolves, the entire solar system revolves around barycenter, and while sun is the biggest body in terms of mass and size, it can have other all other objects come around in circle, but other objects can also have an equal influence on based on their size and gravity. They can influence the movement of sun. So contrary to what we think, like sun is fixed, sun also go through some amount of wobbling in its orbit. And the one above is like this is a relationship between earth and moon. So they always face each other. It's called they are locked in tidal position. So that's how we end up seeing only one part of the moon always. And if you look at the sun's path, as you see in the figure here, the sun goes around 1.3 million kilometer if these are measurement scale used here. So if you start here, the sun goes around like this, not in a fixed position, but rather it also goes around in some amount of randomness involved. And each planet contributes to some amount of this variation. If you look at sun and moon, together they contribute about 870 kilometers of distance movement in sun's path. This is just astronomy, pure astronomy. Because of these reasons only, even sun is not fixed; it moves. So that's the reason sun is being classified as a graha in Indian astrology, even though it's a star. The sun is not exactly in the center of any of the planets, so it is little bit towards left or right, or for some planets all the planets do not share a common center. So if you look at this, just observe these planets, and the red circle is a perfect circle, which is like, the planets will move on the same speed. But rather you look at the pink color one, which is little bit on the eccentric side of one side of it. Observe the pink color dot. So as it moves away, it will go slow, and then as it gets closer, it gets quite a big it pick up speed, and then it moves fast. So this is we call aphelion and perihelion. So different planets move at different speeds, and as they come close to sun, they pick up speed, right? So that's how all these nuances have been captured in Indian astrology. They use something called gati, and they call about retrograde motions. They talk about astangam. They talk about all that technical terms. Everything all relates to the astronomy side of the planets. So the whole system is built based on the predictors are nothing but planets and their positions and their different unique status in terms of astronomically. And then comes the intermediate layer between astrology and astronomy, which is the statistical modeling framework. So this is one of the unexplored areas. I really wonder if we spend so much of time and effort on learning so many things. I don't know why nobody ever looked into it from a statistical modeling framework. If at all someone wants to study mathematics, someone wants to study statistics, so this is the area that should be given utmost focus by Indian government. Not only from a astrology framework, even otherwise from a pure statistical modeling and construction framework. So this is one of the very, very elegant systems. So in Indian astrology, we talk about three dimensions. We talk about Rashi, 12 Rashis. We talk about nine Graha plus Lagna. And then we talk about Bhava. So within these three dimensions, you can fit any person born in the world, who were born, who will be born. Any point in time can be constructed or kind synthesized into these three dimensions. If you use these three dimension, you can pretty much come up with prediction for anybody born or going to be born. So if you look at astrological text, normally you will hear about your first cloud in seventh house, seventh cloud in ninth house. So that's kind of a dimension they will talk about. Sometimes they will talk about you have this nakshatra, sun, you have moon in this nakshatra, Anush nakshatra, so you will be like this. Or they will talk about you have Saturn in Cancer, so you will be a kind of this kind of a personality. So if you go around any astrological reading, or any generalization, they will always bring about a combination of one of these two of these dimensions minimum. Either they will talk about a planet in Rasi, they will talk about a Bhava, Lord in another Bhava, so those kind of things. That's how they have created an extensive catalog. All the catalog is nothing but based on observation, so they have developed. If at all you want to read life about a person in a particular dimension, you just get into that part of it, and then you understand it, and then you provide a reading. So that's how they have developed a system. Imagine a system of that can capture any point in time, elegantly captured in three dimensions. Right? It's a miracle. Mathematically they are able to synthesize everything into a fewer handful of manageable dimensions. It's an amazing knowledge of our seers. Normally, when we go, we look at different patterns within a horoscope, and then we provide readings based on those patterns. And these patterns can be vary based on the level of expertise one holds in astrology. In Indian astrology, close to 800 different systems exist, and everybody follows different set of combinations, different set of rules, additional considerations, and things like that. That's why no two astrologers will be able to provide a reading, same reading. You go take any chart, the same astrologer will not be able to provide the same reading if you go and meet him again. So that's the kind of beauty. It adds up to a lot of variability, but the mathematical framework is fixed. So if you want to understand it from a mathematical framework perspective, it becomes all more easy to provide readings. And we always consider time of where if somebody is born in a rich family, then we don't offer the same readings to someone born in a poor family, because it also takes into consideration the surroundings in which somebody is brought up, the importance of marriage attached to in India. is not same as you go to a Western world. So marriages are not like a bonding relationship in Western world. Like, so the predictions or the way we read for Dutch charts for two different countries will be different, but pretty much our system, all the developed rules are developed to our system, but this can be easily extrapolated to other countries as well. So that's the beauty of the system. So if you construct a chart, it will be like this. You start with the positioning something called a lagna, which is ascendant, and then you mark the position of the planet in a 30-degree range. So 360 divided by 12, you have a 30-degree box, so you will see where a planet is positioned. This is the traditional view. So I have, if you have to give a reading, this is something I developed. Bear with me, it's in Tamil language, but just by looking at this chart, I can tell what kind of person this person would be. For example, somebody in a lagna, so you see called this a lagna, somebody having a lagna, Saturn in lagna, so this person tends to be more of a workaholic person, right? And this person will accumulate things, but he won't be able to enjoy things to the full potential. For this person, Saturn being the seventh and eighth lord, so this person will have a trouble in marriage. So he will not be able to leave the partner, even though the partner gives a lot of troubles. So this kind of reading, you combine the bhava, you combine rasi, you combine planet, you can quickly get into a reading mode and tell how the life will be. What we are talking about today is like one to one. If you go to any astrologer, you go to the astrologer, he spends time with you, he will look at your chart, he will provide you advice or directions or readings based related to your life or non-life matters, like you want to buy a property, you want to buy a car, or you are running into a legal battle, or you are running into a marriage not happening, or you are probably running into a medical condition. So those things are like life and non-life. This is the traditional astrology, and normally one astrologer will provide reading to many. So this is the current framework. But once we understand the mathematical framework, right? So the statistical modeling framework, then this can all of a sudden this can convert into, it can grow exponentially into a different world. Imagine you go to a matrimony site, right? So many of us, for our kids, try to get married, go to a matrimony site. A matrimony site, normally, if at all a serious matrimony site want to develop a winning marriage combinations, they could very well build a mathematical model, and then they can, the moment you register, they can give you set of 10 people in the database who will fit your match, and then they will be done with it. But people won't do that, because the more you stay in a matrimony site, the more revenue stream for that. This has serious applications, I would say commercial applications, and this is also a tempting point for many people to jump in and develop some solutions. But in the long run, this can have, while this can benefit an individual or an organization, this is not socially very valuable. Today, in any astrological reading, the challenge we have here is how much money you can pay for it and how much money you can get out of it. And normally people end up on a one-to-one on a personal level. But if you build like a mathematical model, and if you develop a knowledge database which is purely based on a astrological model at a large scale, like a country level database, it has a huge potential, social potential. For example, you can pretty much decide. This is one of the highly commercial places currently being exploited by many astrologers. It's related to predictions: who will win the election, which seat, which constituency. If there are 20 candidates in this constituency, what is the prospect of somebody winning? Even within the same party, while choosing a candidate, you can pretty much choose a candidate who is more likely to win based on the times ahead of him. And this is very very important, especially when choosing people for senior positions or leadership positions. If you are able to choose someone who is going to run a good times, and who is also a genuine guy, then he can bring about a lot of good things to the society. This is an application, potential application, but right now nobody is investing in that. Everybody runs into medical issues, health issues. If these can be identified early, that can very well help in working on preventive measures. And the educational choices, all our kids go through this grind. We all push them into same set of system of education. We don't allow them to realize their full potential that is indicated in their horoscopes. So if you're able to fine tune, if you're able to optimally allocate which educational choices are better, as a society, thus we will benefit a lot. So this is some of the potential applications that astrology can provide. The challenge in today's time is still perceived as a superstition compared to what's as a modeling framework. And you go to any astrologer, and they don't provide same kind of a reading in the same time or between across astrologers. So that's another kind of variability adding more challenges. And it's not a scalable model. Every astrologer, a serious astrological reading will take at least few hours of study before offering some 15-20 minutes of advice. That's so it's not very scalable. You have to be in queue. A lot of astrologers have a huge queue of people waiting for their consultation. Everybody follow their own system and all of that. We don't have a public database which talks about what kind of patterns will yield to lead to what kind of outcomes. Developing an astrology knowledge takes us years and years of practice. Once the astrologer expires, all the knowledge he accumulated or developed over a time just perish with him. We don't get them back. So to overcome all of that, I'm kind of into a path that looks into astrology from a mathematical modeling framework that will at some point of time involving artificial intelligence, machine learning, because many of this is a very very mathematically intensive domain, so where you need to travel back and forth in time. Normally as an astrologer you don't get to foresee beyond 1 or 2 years. We do we mainly look at major events. We don't get time to look into minor things. But once we build a framework which is based on data, and Indian astrology has all the core components for building that one. So then this can be like a boon to the entire human race. So we can optimize a lot of things at a society level that will benefit everyone. Right, I'm onto your journey. I just started, and I wanted to start from the top, but I started in working from the ground level. So today I have been writing a lot about Indian astrology from a statistical modeling framework, taking each of the individual components in Indian astrology and explaining their statistical relevance, how they are constructed, fitting into the modern day framework. So that's where I am up to. And I sincerely thank each one of you for your valuable time here. There are some questions here.
Tejesh,
Hi, Tejesh.
where we say Vidya Madhyala Vella Mudiyum. We can win fate by intelligence. Are we getting there? Can we change the fate? I mean, you've seen this, right? My question comes here from where people do pariharas and all to get their future better or make it good. So is that all myth?
So that's a very good question, sir. That is a question many people have who approaches astrology from a logical perspective. If you remember, the first opening slide of my presentation is Uyir Peruvali Avula. Can you follow me, sir? My very opening slide I had is Uyir Peruvali Avula. So even if you do all that magic, all that tactical, everything you do, if something has to happen, because it's a larger order, so that will happen. So that's what even Thiruvalluvar says. But all our attempts towards it, not just to beat it, the whole purpose of astrology is developing an understanding of oneself and realizing our full potential, playing to our strength instead of running into our weakness. And also astrological wisdom provide you a lot of signpost, whether you should go fast, you should go slow, or what is going to be ahead. So it's like a signboard on your road. If you read it correctly, and if you're able to take advantages of your strength, then one can lead a very fulfilling life. The whole purpose of astrology is helping people to lead a fulfilling life and also come across some of the challenges so which are beyond their control. A pariharam itself is only recommended as a last remedy, but there is no pariharam for some of the things. So you have to accept it, and then you have to based on that acceptance, you play to your strength and you move on. So that's the whole purpose of this astrological wisdom, sir. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
After that, they have mentioned I'm going to give about 25 and above. I am telling that my case absolutely be Sita. I thought let me share with you since you are already telling about astrology.
Thank you. That's it holds good for majority of the people. So again, a lot of people say that astrology is like 100% correct. So as a statistician, I want to draw a baseline and I want to start from there. I would say many people, based on their experience, they are able to draw deeper insights, close to perfect predictions. But as a framework, if you consider, if you have more and more data coming in to validate this kind of observations, then we can certainly build a more reliable, more accurate models. But as a baseline, general astrological predictions, the framework, if someone, even at a beginner, if they use it correctly, they will certainly get close to 60-70% of the times correct predictions. Thank you for sharing your experiences, sir.
It's been such an honor to be part of this wonderful evening with Rotary Mysore and Rotary Club. And I would like to thank Dr. Ramesh Trivedi for connecting with us overseas and giving us a insight about astrology. Thank you very much. We thoroughly enjoyed your time, Dr. Ramesh.
Thank you, everyone, for providing me this opportunity.